Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Bank Shop Breakdown. We're going to go over 4 college basketball games for Monday, March 4th, 2024. If you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your college basketball picks in the comment section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, including my college basketball Bank Shop best bet, you can find this at the premium picks tab at pickdawgz.com. There's also a link in the description. Alrighty, here we go. Here are the games for Monday in college hoops. First up, we see the first conference tournament game for the season. This one's going to be the Atlantic Sun, the first round between Jacksonville and Kennesaw State. This one's 7 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be on ESPN+. This is where the madness begins. This is where teams like, Jacksonville and Kennesaw, their season ends if they lose in this first round. And, I think it should be this game and the other one with Queens and Florida Gulf Coast. Some great games on the board. And in this matchup, I firmly believe that Jacksonville's the weakest team in this conference. I think Kennesaw, while they're not in great form, is still the better team here, and they just beat Jacksonville back on February 14th by 5 points. Kennesaw, I don't love their defense, but their offense is potent. They're a good shooting team, fundamentally sound offensive team. They get pretty good looks offensively as well, and they're the fastest-paced team in college basketball, so they're really tough to play against. They're just so fast offensively, shooting the ball in only 14 seconds of their shot clock on average. And Jacksonville, I just think this is a team that offensively, 305 the nation adjusted offensive efficiency, turns the ball over a lot and doesn't really get great looks offensively. And on the defensive side, it's not much better. They don't take care of the defensive glass. They take quite a few fouls, and they're ranked 274th in three-point defense. Now, Kennesaw State is actually a top 100 two-point offense in college basketball. However, they rely more so on the three-point jumper. They score 33.2% of their points from the perimeter, which is the 98th most in the country. And against this weak Jacksonville perimeter defense, I think it's going to bode well for them, especially playing at home. I like Kennesaw. They may not be as good a team as they were last year. This is a team that lost a lot of production and lost their head coach, but I still think they're good enough in this first-round game, so I'm going to go with the Owls at home in this one. Next up, we see the second first-round game of the A-Sun tournament. This one's going to be between Queens University and Florida Gulf Coast. This one's also going to be 7 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be on ESPN+. Florida Gulf Coast, we know this program from Dunk City about, a little over 10 years ago, where Florida Gulf Coast won the A-Sun. They were a 15th seed in the Big Dance, and they pulled off the 15-2 upset over Georgetown, and then they went on to the next round, won that game over San Diego State, made it to the Sweet 16. And while recently we've seen some more 15 and 16 seeds do some damage in March Madness, at that point it really was very, very rare to see a 15 seed, go to the second weekend. And both of those wins in the first two rounds were double-digit wins as well. And now you fast forward to 2023-24. Florida Gulf Coast, in recent years has not fared too well in this A-Sun tournament, a tournament that they dominated, about 10 years ago. And when we see last year a one and done, and their one matchup and one loss was to this Queens University team. And even in years prior, either one win in the tournament or no wins. It just hasn't been pretty for the Eagles. And Queens University, I think, is a team that's flying under the radar for most of the season. But here we are seeing them late in the year, win 3 of the last 4 games in the regular season. They beat a really tough Stetson team on the road back on February 22nd. Now, Florida Gulf Coast also in good form going towards the end of the regular season. They won the final 3 games, and they beat this Queens team 90-81 back on February 24th. But I still think there's value with this Queens offense. And while it's not the most experienced team, I just think that this offense, once it gets going, is one of the more potent ones in the conference. They take care of the basketball. They get to the free throw line. Their shooting numbers aren't the best, but their shot quality numbers are pretty solid offensively. And they play at such a fast pace that it makes them dangerous in a tournament setting, in my opinion. It's why I think they won. Last year they looked solid in their first ever A-Sun Conference tournament game against these Eagles. And to me, I just think that there's value at plus money with Queens in this spot, even on the road. They're playing with revenge, of course, losing that game recently to Florida Gulf Coast. And I don't love this Florida Gulf Coast defense. While I don't think Queens defense is much better, I just think that this Queens offense has been so underrated all season long that I think that we're actually still getting value with them in this spot. So give me Queens, which should be a great game, but I think the plus money is where you want to attack it. I'm going to take Queens on the money line in this one. Next up, we see Texas and Baylor. This one's going to be a 9 p.m. Eastern start time. It's going to be on ESPN. Yeah, I think Baylor's a much better team here. They're playing at home and playing with revenge after losing to Texas in the first matchup of this season series. But that was a 2-point game, and it was also it was a sandwich game in between two overtime losses against Kansas State and TCU. That was certainly the toughest stretch of the season for Baylor thus far. But they're playing good ball. They've beaten TCU and Kansas recently, and Texas. I have mentioned a few times. I think this is a Longhorns team. It's just a bit overrated. Not their best team, not their best roster that we've seen in the last decade. And when you look at Baylor, you could say, oh, this is a letdown spot. They just beat Kansas, one of the best programs in this conference, a big rival for Baylor in college basketball, and you beat them at home by 8 points. I worry about a letdown. However, with Baylor, we have just not seen a lot of letdown performances where they haven't performed at a high level after winning a big game. When you look at their wins against top 35 or 40 teams in KenPom, they've been able to follow them up with solid performances. When they beat Auburn, the next game they played was a subdivision of teams, so it doesn't really tell us much. But when they played against Florida, they won that close game, 95-91. They followed it up with a 38-point win against Nicholls State, a team that was actually pretty sneaky in non-conference play. When you go to conference play, their first big win against BYU back on January 9th, they followed that game up with the win against Cincinnati. When you look at the win over Iowa State back on February 3rd, a very, very good Cyclones team. They won that game by 2 points. They followed it up with a 6-point win and cover against Texas Tech in the next game. When you look at their win against Oklahoma, a blowout win against a very solid Sooners team, they followed it up by going at West Virginia in a really tough building and beat West Virginia by 13 points, scoring 94 in that win. And then, of course, recently we saw them beat TCU, a very solid team. They went on the road and beat TCU in an upset. They were an upset. They were a 2.5-point dog. And they followed it up with the win against Kansas, an 8-point win against the Jayhawks. So I'm not worried about a letdown with this Baylor team. I just think plainly they are the better team here. And we're laying a pretty reasonable number. Playing with revenge, I'm going to go with the Baylor Bears and lay the points. And the final game we're going to talk about for the Monday card in college basketball, it's going to be Northern Colorado and Northern Arizona. This one's going to be 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN+. Northern Colorado's actually been pretty trustworthy on the road this season, so laying a decent price with Northern Colorado on the road doesn't really concern me, even though I do think Northern Arizona is better than its current record and maybe a team that might make some noise in this conference tournament in the Big Sky. I still think there's no doubting that Northern Colorado is the better team fundamentally. They do a much better job at taking care of the basketball, and they're much stronger on the defensive glass. They don't take too many fouls defensively. While their defense isn't great, their offense is pretty potent. They're a great shooting team, top 20 in effective field goal percentage, top 60 in three-point percentage, and top 20 as well in two-point field goal percentage. And, Northern Arizona's defense gives up a lot of its points from two-point field goals, and they're ranked 343rd in two-point defense. Northern Colorado scores, like I said, they're top 20 in two-point offense, and they score 54.2% of their points via two-point field goals. So I think Northern Colorado, runs up the score offensively, and this is a team that we've been able to trust on the road this season. They have a solid road resume, wins against Idaho State, Sacramento State. They beat Idaho as well, and Montana in conference play, and then in non-conference play, they took down North Dakota, and a Mountain West team in Air Force as well, all on the road. So I'm going to go with Northern Colorado here at a decent price on the road. This is the final game of the regular season for both of these teams. I think Northern Colorado grabs a win and cover. And that's it. Those are the games for Monday in college hoops. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe, and put your college basketball picks in the comment section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pickdawgz Premium. As always, this is Romanelli. Good luck.